I'm Dr. Roney, by the way. I want to welcome you. Those of you that have been coming and joining the cancer conversation for a long time, welcome. And then if you are new to the cancer conversation, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you as well. Myself, Dr. Roney, and then we're joined here by Dr. Lee Cowden, who is one of the foremost authorities in this functional med integrative world. So, and Doc, is it fair to say that Dr. Connealy is you're one of her mentors? Is that fair?
Yeah, we met 20 something years ago, and she has learned certain things that I don't know, and I learned a few things that that she didn't know, and so we've shared information.
Perfect. Yeah. Doctor, you'll love Dr. Cowden. He's a wealth of knowledge. The topic tonight is on toxins and the detox process and the importance of it. And Dr. Cowden, before we got on, said, "Hey, I could talk for 45 minutes or an hour on this tonight, but I could literally talk for 45 hours on it if we had the time." So this is a really, really good topic and really important topic, as you'll see as we walk through, from a standpoint of overall health. And when we're dealing with chronic disease, Dr. Cowden, is it safe to say that is a major player today in the chronic disease world?
Absolutely.
High priority, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll walk you through, the detox process. We'll walk you through what's going on in the world today, the amount of toxins and toxicants that we're exposed to. So I think you'll get a lot out of this, and I think you'll see the importance of why, especially Dr. Connealy at the clinic, she's very, very adamant about people doing detoxification, either detoxes with certain protocols, and or everything from Epsom salt baths and infrared saunas and a number of different strategies to make sure that we're consistently detoxing because of what we're exposed to every day. So with that, what I like to do, as you know, if you've been on with me before, I like to go over just a brief explanation of our philosophy here at the clinic and how we treat. And then I'll tie in how this detox process ties into our overall care plan and our formula. So having said that, I'll review what we call the 4-pillar approach briefly. So the first pillar, and this is philosophically how we like to treat, involves the lab testing, right? And the diagnostic. So in the conventional world or our world, we still want to look at everything from PET scans to CAT scans and MRIs and ultrasounds and things like that, right? The standards. We want to look at blood work and urinalysis and all of that is relevant. In addition to those things, we also want to look at lab testing that can individualize the care a little bit more. So we will do or may order a test called the RGCC test. We might do Guardant 360. We could do Fulgent. I mean, there's a number of different tests that we do, but what we're trying to do with those tests are individualize the care a little bit more. Meaning, and I'll use the RGCC as an example. We may have a patient do the RGCC because it will tell us the circulating tumor cells, which are cells that cleave off the original tumor and are circulating around the bloodstream. And if they're elevated, even if, say, you had no evidence of disease, you were deemed cancer-free, but these cells are elevated, there's a higher predisposition of them turning into something. So we want to be aware that they're there and knock them down with certain strategies so we can reduce the reoccurrence rate. Not only that, a test like the RGCC or Guardant will also tell us what chemo agents those cells might be most sensitive to, right? So we want to know those bits of information. It could also tell us natural agents that those cells are most sensitive to. So we can use these strategies to individualize the care more, as opposed to maybe what I would call more cookie cutter or standard of care. We want to individualize the care as best we can. A couple other examples, we use a test or order a test called nagalase. Nagalase is an enzyme that's secreted by the cancer cells that if those cells or the nagalase levels are elevated, it basically tells us that your immune system is not able to attack the cancer cell because nagalase is kind of blocking it. It's almost a defense mechanism. So if we find that high, we definitely want to bring that down to give your immune system a better chance. PHI, for example, tells us a lot, but it may tell us that the cells are more anaerobic. So we might need to increase your oxygenation of the body via different modalities, whether it's the EBU or RHP or hyperbaric or what have you, to make sure we're creating an environment where there's more oxygen, which cancer cells don't thrive in a high oxygen environment, and they don't thrive in a more alkaline environment. So we want to test things that can tell us these things so we can get specific on some of the care that we give. So pillar one are all the labs and diagnostics, but getting a deeper dive so we can individualize the care a little bit more, which again increases your upside, right? So that's an important factor. Pillar two has to do with maybe starving the cancer, killing the cancer, again, oxidation or not oxidation, but oxygenation of the body, alkalizing the body. So going back to starving the cancer, and that's a loose term, we may use repurposed drugs that block certain pathways or affect certain pathways that feed the cancer cell. We may use things like chemo or recommend chemosurgery, radiation, depending on what's presented, right? Some people just need that. It's just the way it goes, depending on the aggressiveness and what's found. Or they could utilize low dose or fractionated chemo, which basically we bring the blood sugar down into therapeutic range, depending, and then infuse the chemo agents while the blood sugar is down. And what that does is it targets the cells a little bit more. So it only damages the cancer cells, but leaves the surrounding cells more intact. And that's less side effect, but still has the ammunition it takes to help kill the cancer cells. So those strategies, ladies and gentlemen, from a starve phase to a kill phase, and oxygenation and alkalizing are big factors as far as how we treat and how we want to treat. We always try to do the least invasive, but some people, they may need surgery, chemo, and radiation as one part of the plan. But as I try to articulate on a daily basis, that plan, if they had to use the conventional model of care of surgery, chemo, or radiation, it's like one chapter of a 20-chapter book. So although that chapter is very important for a lot of people, we also want to do these other steps in order to keep the body strong and healthy through the process. And one of those steps is pillar 3, which is, or are, immune boosters. Vitamin C IV, mistletoe, a number of different immune boosters that we could use from a supplement standpoint or an IV standpoint that really help your immune system stay nice and strong through the process, right? So chemo, as an example, whether it's conventional or low dose, affects the white blood cells. It affects the bone marrow, so which produces your immune cells. So if that's going on, we want to offset that as best we can with some of these immune boosters that are going to give you a much better chance of staying strong and healthy through the process. Okay, so that's another pillar that we like to implement. And then finally is where this lecture kind of falls into our causes, right? What is causing those cells, that oxidative stress to the cells or damage to the DNA and the genomes of the cell that won't allow it to go through cell death and instead replicate out of control, right? What are those factors? Well, that could be everything from foods that we eat to stress in the body, emotional, physical, or chemical. It could be heavy metals, non-metal toxins, these toxicants that we're dealing with in our environment and our food supply and the air and the environment, et cetera. It could be infections like bacteria, viral, fungal infections, parasitic infections. All these different things create an immune response within the tissue, which then will create inflammation. And that inflammatory response will then create, and I'm leaving some steps out, but just to make it simple, will then create damage to the cell. And that cell should be healthy and strong enough to go through cell death if it is damaged, right? That's the DNA and the genomes that affect that. But if they're damaged, then those cells won't go through cell death. They'll just replicate out of control. And that is cancer. So we have to figure out, like Connealy likes to say, and Dr. Cowden, I think, will attest to this, we have to peel back the layers of the onion as to what may have created this environment conducive for these cancer cells to thrive. So that's the fourth pillar. Now, as it ties into today's lecture, these toxins are a major, major player in the fourth pillar, or the causes of these cancers. Right, Dr. Cowden, is that fair? Good.
Yep. Got good summary.
Anything to add to that off the top of your head that you were thinking?
Well, we're going to talk about this in this next part, but different people accumulate toxins at different rates and different places in their body. And what the Chinese figured out several hundred years ago is that you accumulate toxins in the body where you have unresolved emotions. And so the emotions then cause the buildup of toxins in the liver and the gallbladder and the bile ducts. If you have unresolved anger and frustration, for example, if you have unresolved fear, it'll build up toxins in the kidney and the adrenal glands and the urinary bladder and the some of the other gonads and male and female organs. And if you have unresolved sadness, it'll build up toxins in the pancreas and the colon and the lungs, and so on. So, so that's a very important piece. Dr. Hammer in Germany, a friend of mine and Dr. Connealy's, was an acquaintance of us. He's now deceased, but he figured out that cancers are caused in large part by the emotions, and the emotions attract the toxins, and the toxins attract the microbes, and the microbes create the inflammation, and the inflammation creates the cancer. So
interesting take. Now, when you said the Chinese, is that the meridian part of that, Doc? Is that tied or no?
Well, yeah, they figured it out from Chinese pulses,
Mm-hmm.
but because the pulses relate to different organs and organ systems, but yeah, so that's
Part of it.
part of the whole picture, and it's really important for people to recognize that if they have too many toxic emotions, they're going to accumulate physical toxins, which is going to create an environment to grow cancer.
Interesting take. I know Connealy talks about that, but it's interesting because even as I'm doing my prep for tonight and reviewing a lot of things, that wasn't on the radar. So that's a really good. So getting back to, say, evox or some type of emotional I guess support or care, peeling back those layers of the onion become very important to not just removing toxins and helping phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox, which we'll talk about. It's actually getting the emotional part of this resolved.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's where Connealy talks about it just about daily, but now it makes much better sense. So very interesting. Good point. All right, I'll pull up the slideshow, gang, and then we'll walk through everything here. And so truth about toxins, Dr. Cowden is going to spearhead this quite a bit. I'll add in, I have some things that I like to talk about regarding phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox, as far as what happens in the pathways just to make it, I think, a little more understandable. And then what nutrients are needed, what antioxidants are needed to make all this stuff work too. So we'll tag team a little bit, but I'm definitely going to let Dr. Cowden do a lot of this. So let me go through, you all know my background. Dr. Cowden, do you mind, Doc? You want to go through just some of your background briefly, let everybody know?
Well, I went the usual training route, medical school, Houston, internal medicine, residency in cardiology and critical care fellowships at St. Louis University Hospital Group. Got board certified in internal medicine, cardiology. Practiced integrative medicine though since 1975 with family and friends, and then teaching integrative medicine since 1986. And also have a homeopathic license by examination in Arizona. Author of 6 books. A consultant to Nutramex out of Florida, and the educational sites you ought to take note of. ACIMconnect.com has about 2,000 hours worth of integrative medicine education on it that you can stream off whenever you want. And then there's a little fee for most of them, but and then the drleecowden.com is my personal website, and I'm not using that pandemic town hall anymore, so you can ignore that one.
Good. Yeah. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, just a wealth of knowledge. So it's definitely a kind of an honor to have Dr. Cowden on here. So we appreciate you, Doc. All right. The 4 pillars, we already talked about that, the testing, the treatments, the immune boosting, and the causes. Ladies and gentlemen, that should be a typical plan for any cancer patient or chronic disease patient in America. Unfortunately, it's not. The conventional model has their one thing that they're good at. It's not a bad thing. It can be a really good thing, but just understand that there's these 19 other chapters of that 20 chapter book that if they're implemented, it's going to mitigate your downside significantly and maximize your upside. And we see it here at the clinic every day. And Dr. Cowden, right? Agree. It's those other chapters that make a big difference in addition to, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So big deal. Okay. All right. So talk to us, Doc. Tell us about these chemicals, toxins. I read some stats just over the last 24 hours that blew my mind on how many chemicals and toxins that we're exposed to, but I'll let you rock and roll here.
Well, I think that last I looked, there was something like 87,000 chemicals that have been produced by the chemical industry in the United States, and only about 200 of those have been tested to see what their effect is in humans. So we're all guinea pigs, basically, in a big laboratory. And unfortunately, what happens is, one of those chemicals causes enough deaths, then the public rises up against the government, says you need to ban this chemical. So they ban that chemical, but the chemical company that made that chemical has already made another chemical almost identical to it that they put in place of that one, and the process goes on.
They're ahead, they're one step ahead based on, right? They're just one step ahead. Yeah.
Environmental Protection Agency could be doing some good things for us, but they become a henchman for the chemical industry, unfortunately.
I think I read something yesterday. In 1930, there were about 35 approved, I think, either pesticides or chemicals in the agricultural community. Now, again, I read 175,000 today that are approved, but I can't remember the specifics. I only say that because in 1930 something, there were 35. However, I can't remember the exact, and I apologize, but now there's 175,000 approved. That's what I read. So you see the difference. Yeah. Are you familiar with that one, Doc? Something like that. It might be what you just talked about.
Yeah, it's ever increasing, and it's probably doubled just in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Agree. And then I did read just personal care products. Women on a daily basis, about 185 a day they're exposed to, and men are about 85, just personal care products. So I read that too. And there was references to that as well. So I can get those to you, gang, if you ever wanted them. So
yeah. Well, the skin is a highly absorptive surface. And so if you want something to go into your bloodstream, either take it by mouth or put it on topically. So the rule is, if you wouldn't eat it, don't put it on your skin.
Right.
Okay,
Shep,
so
what do you need, Shep? What is that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this slide is like the foundation for the discussion about toxicity, and the bathtub is basically every human being on the planet. And some people have only a little bit of dirty water in their bathtub, but most people, well, 60% of the population have symptomatic illness in the United States. So that's 60% have a bathtub full of dirty water overflowing onto the bathroom floor. The water on the bathroom floor represents the symptomatic illness. And you see on this bathtub that there's dirty water faucets flowing copious amounts of dirty water into the bathtub. And that includes the nutrient depleted foods, electromagnetic fields, radiation pollution, toxic relationships, toxic emotions, heavy metals, polluted air, antibiotics, pesticides, biotoxins, allergens, microbes, toxic foci, jewelry, scars, drugs. And then you see on the right side of that bathtub where you should have good water flowing in to kind of dilute out the dirty water. Almost all those water faucets are turned almost completely down, or they are completely turned off. And so you're not getting any dilution of the toxins in the body because you're not getting healthy nutrients and foods. You don't have purpose and will to live. You're lacking sunshine and exercise, good relationships, peace, joy, love, great attitude, restful sleep, pure water, fresh air, and some kind of spirituality. And then at the bottom of the bathtub are drains that should be draining toxins out of the bathtub. But in most people, those drains are clogged up.
Mhm.
The normal bowel function should be 3 or 4 bowel movements every day, but that's less than 1% of the population that have that. Okay, so 99% of the population are constipated because they have less than 3 or 4 bowel movements per day. If the toxins don't go out of the bowel into the toilet, they're going to be absorbed through the bowel wall into the hepatic portal circulation, go straight to the liver and poison overload the liver. Once the liver gets overloaded enough, then the detoxification pathways in the liver don't work, and the toxins spill out into the bloodstream undealt with, and poison overload the kidneys. That's why we have the highest rate of kidney failure and hemodialysis in this country compared to any other developed country.
Wow.
And then the lymphatic system is clogged up because people are couch potatoes, and they're eating foods that clog up their lymphatic system. Cow dairy products and gluten grains clog up the lymphatic system, and that's the staple of the American diet. And and then also detoxing the emotions with Evox, NET, and other methodologies. And so if you want to get somebody well, you close off the dirty water faucets on the left side to the best of your ability, open up the clean water faucets on the right side of the bathtub, and open up the drains. So get their bowel moving, give them magnesium, vitamin C, fiber, water, and that helps to take down the load on the liver. And then support their liver with, well, the most important thing probably to do for the liver is to do a visualization, shouting, and forgiving. And that's on my website, drleecowden.com. And I strongly urge every patient, especially patients with cancer, to do that exercise, because it gives you a lot of release of not just anger, but also all kinds of emotions that cause the body to hold on to physical toxins.
Yeah, this slide is excellent. Like this kind of tells you, visually what's going on. Clogged up, open up the drain, shut the bad ones off, and get rid of those toxins. So I love it. That's awesome. All right, so back to the emotions. So
yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Just scroll down a ways on the slide, people can look and see some of the other points there. But basically, to reiterate, the physical toxin, the emotional toxins are trapped in specific emotions, and we know if we know which emotion it is, we know which organ to look for that emotion. Okay, so gallbladder and bile ducts is anger, fear is in the urinary bladder and kidneys, sadness in the pancreas and colon, and so on. And once the emotional toxins accumulate there, then the physical toxins accumulate. When the physical toxins accumulate, that creates an environment that makes it easy for microbes to grow and hard for white blood cells to work in that organ. And then you get a buildup of inflammatory responses in that organ, which then sets you up for cancer and other chronic diseases. So if you want to get well, you need to get rid of the emotions first, which then helps you get rid of the physical toxins, which then creates an environment that makes it hard for the bugs to grow and easy for the white blood cells to work. And pretty soon you're free of cancer. As that Dr. Hammer I mentioned earlier, he did several years worth of treatment in a hospital in Germany just by asking patients with advanced cancer the right question in the right order. And when that patient would get an aha moment, they would have spontaneous remission from their cancer. And he did that repeatedly. As a matter of fact, his 5-year survival rate was 92%. for stage 3 and stage 4 cancer. To give you a point of reference, stage 4 cancer has about a 5% 5-year survival rate. Stage 3 has about a 25 to 30% 5-year survival rate, and 92% is a whole lot more than either one of those.
Wow, that's phenomenal. That's big. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So can anybody tell that this might be a problem for your environment?
A little bit.
Yeah. So that is a major mold infestation in this house, and people that live in that house can guarantee that they will become ill, because the molds produce mycotoxins, and mycotoxins are immune suppressive, cancer causing, and neurodegenerative. And the more mycotoxins you have in your body, the greater the probability that you'll have one of those chronic diseases. And so here's some names of the mycotoxins and some of the primary fungi that produce those mycotoxins. But it's worthwhile for anybody that's chronically ill, in my opinion, to get a urine mycotoxin panel through real-time lab or through Great Plains Laboratory. And if you have an elevated level of mycotoxins, then you need to find out where that's coming from. Is it just mycotoxins that are being produced by fungi in your gut or your paranasal sinuses and elsewhere in your body? Or are you breathing those mycotoxins in every day from a contaminated home or workplace? If it's the latter, you'll never get rid of the mold and mycotoxins in your body until you get rid of it in the home and the workplace first. Next.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and this is from the Great Plains Laboratory. It tells you, some of the binders that you can use to bind up the mycotoxins in your body once you've gotten rid of the mold and mycotoxins in your home, your workplace, and your body. So you can, don't have to guess what's going to take it out. And cholestyramine is one that's very popular with Dr. Shoemaker. But you see that it's not terribly effective against very many mycotoxins. But the prebiotics, the over there on the far right, bind up a whole bunch of them. And the prebiotics I'm talking about are Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is leavening yeast, Saccharomyces boulardii, which is available as a nutritional supplement, from online and from health food stores, and then Lactobacillus plantarum. And clay and charcoal are also pretty good mycotoxin binders. But you got to get the mycotoxins out if you want your immune system to come back up. You can't just take a magic pill and expect your immune system to come back up if your immune system being pounded down every day by mycotoxins. Next slide.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I usually recommend people do a plate test. For $30 online, you can buy some Sabarod agar plates, a stack of 10 of them, 10 or 12, and then you put those out in your home or your workplace, and you leave the lids open for 1 hour, and then you collect them and put with indelible pen the place that they came from on the bottom of the plate, and then you put those into a dark cabinet or dark closet, and every 24 hours you pull them out of there and look at them. You got to make sure that none of them are ever exposed to sunlight, because sunlight kills mold and fungus. And the number of colonies on there that you count, and you see that large colony on the middle section there, that black one up against the edge, is the largest colony on there. But you count but you count those little white dots as equal to the large colony. The difference is the little white dots are very slow growing colonies, but they can still be producing a lot of mycotoxins. And the large colonies are the fast growing fungi. Okay. But they're all toxic. They're all harmful. And so if you have, 4 to 8 colonies per plate, then that's okay, 4 or less. If you have 5 to 9, that's a concern. If you have more than 9, that's danger. Get out of the house and try to figure out where the mold or fungus is coming from in that house. You always have to have water somewhere in the house that's allowing the fungus to grow. And that could be from roof leaks. It can be from leaks under your sink or your toilet or your shower or your washing machine, dishwasher, etc. But anyway, find the water leak, stop the water leak, and then get the mold out of the house. The easiest way to get the mold out after you turn off all the water leaks is to use it's called a hydroxyl generator. You can buy a hydroxyl generator online for about $800, and it'll clean the air in about a month's time in a building up to about 3,000 square feet of space. Now, if you got a bigger house than that, then get a couple of them, one on each floor, for example. Next slide. Okay, so here's the 6 steps to eliminate mold. And the reason we're talking about mold again is because it is the most toxic of all toxins, because the mycotoxins are the most toxic of all toxins. More toxic, only thing that's more toxic is radioactive elements and possibly mercury. So anyway, you get those Petri dishes, put the dishes out, one on the outside windowsill as your control, and the rest of them inside your house, and then count the colonies every 24 hours for 5 days. If you're not sure about what kind of species of mold or fungus you have, you can send $132 with the 4 of those plates to the immunolytics.com, and they'll do a speciation and give you a report. And that way you don't have to guess what you're dealing with. But after you start cleaning the air of the house, to stop the water leaks and start cleaning the air of the house with a hydroxyl generator, then you need to clean up your diet. It needs to be an antifungal ketogenic diet. It can be either a ketogenic with some meat in it, or it can be a vegan ketogenic diet, but no sugars, no starches, because those feed the fungus. And then you got to do irrigation of your paranasal sinuses with saline and iodine and antifungal herbs to kill off the mold and fungi in the body, in the paranasal sinuses especially. And then you use the binders to get the mycotoxins out of the gut. Next.
So yeah, Doc, we do these tests a lot. So we do the mycotoxins. A couple of the companies combine them. They have the mycotoxins, the 200 non-metal toxins, and then say heavy metals, for example. And one of the things that when we find that there is, say, these mycotoxins in the body, we don't necessarily want to get rid of them until we know the source, right? So if you're in an environment consistently that you're exposing yourself to these, right, Doc, am I correct about this?
Yeah,
We'd like you to know that first and then get rid of the exposure, and then we can detox. Fair?
Yep. These 6 steps in this order, not in a different order. In that order. If you do it in a different order, it won't work.
It won't work. Yeah, exactly. And then real quick, I'll go back on this slide, ladies and gentlemen, you see the immunolytics.com. That's the company that you could send these slides to, or you can order those Petri dishes from them, set them out and send them back. But the way Dr. Cowden is explaining it, I think that time frame of days gives you a better, I think, idea of, hey, if there's things in there over that many days, those Petri dishes will collect them. Right, Doc? So
you examine them every 24 hours for 5 days.
Yep. All right.
Okay, now we're going to move over into electropollution because of what I'll tell you in a minute about the fungi. But these are 3 thermal images of brains of an adult on the far right, a 10-year-old child in the middle, and a 5-year-old child on the far left. And it's the same cell phone held up to the same ear for 5 minutes. Okay. And so you get that much damage of your brain in 5 minutes from a cell phone. And at the very bottom there, you see safe sleeve. If you buy a safe sleeve to put on your phone and you use it properly, here, I'll show you mine. So here's a safe sleeve, and on this side of the case is the EMF shielded mesh. And when you receive the call and close the phone like that, if you want to have a semi-private conversation, you put it up to your ear, and you only get 2% as much EMF into your brain as you would if you did not have the safe sleeve on the phone. So it's not perfect, but it's the best I've found. And it's better, obviously, to put it on speakerphone mode and put it out beyond just barely beyond your reach and shout at it. But the second best is to put it in the safe sleeve and put it up to your ear so you can have a semi-private conversation. Next slide.
Yeah. Hey, Doc, real quick on that. Are you familiar? What are they? The earbuds or whatever? I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar.
Yeah.
Any information on those? Because I know I see a lot of people with those today.
Earbuds have a transducer right there in the ear. So it's like having a hearing aid in your ear. So it's going to zap your brain. if you want to do a blue tube earpiece, that's okay. Blue
Okay.
tube,
Tube.
it has a transducer about a foot away from your body, and the remainder of the air is an air conduction, just like a stethoscope that goes into your ear. So
Mm,
the EMF is not right there in your ear like with the regular buds.
mm,
Okay.
mm.
So that would be okay.
Okay. Ear,
But
ear.
the problem with those is that they always get tangled up in your pocket, and by the time you get it untangled, the person that was trying to call you has given up.
Is
Okay.
that so? The wired ones that the old wired ones say,
Bad idea.
bad
And,
idea.
and yeah, and I had a naturopathic friend out in Arizona who started wearing a little Bluetooth gadget hanging in his ear. He
Yeah.
had his phone down on his belt. And I said, how many hours per day do you wear that thing? Oh, about 14, 16 hours a day. I said, ooh, that's a bad idea, a really
Yeah.
bad idea. I said, you need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
He said, well, I do enough other good things for my health. I don't think it'll have an adverse effect on me. 6 months later, he had brain cancer. 6 months after that, he was dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
There's too
Okay. Now,
close to that area, too much of the oxidative stress, right?
yeah,
Keep it simple. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so this is sections of a rat brain on the left that's never been exposed to a cell phone, a rat brain on the top right that has been exposed to a cell phone one time in its life for 2 hours, 50 days before it was sacrificed to make this slide. Okay, you say, well, I've never used a cell phone for 2 hours. It's additive and cumulative. So if you've ever used a cell phone collectively in your entire life for 2 hours, it looks like the rat brain on the right. Okay, now those black islands are dead necrotic tissue. You don't make more brain cells very easily. Okay, and so that means that you're damaging your brain permanently every time you use a cell phone up against your ear. Okay, next slide. Okay, so it's important to test. The electromagnetic pollution is invisible. You don't know that it's there until you test. Well, a few people do. About 5% of the population are so electromagnetically sensitive that they can tell you when an appliance is turned on or turned off. But 95% of the population can't do that. So you buy Acousticom 2 radio frequency meter that will measure a lot of different frequencies like Wi-Fi and cordless phones and radio frequency burglar alarm systems and cell phone tower emissions and the like. It will not pick up 5G. There is now, though, a 60 gigahertz meter that you can buy for about $650 that will pick up the 60 gigahertz from the 5G. So, if you want to know about that part, you're going to have to spend a little more money. The Dr. Gauss is about $36 online, and that one you can measure the electropollution from electrical appliances in your bedroom, like the radio alarm clock on either side of the bed, or the television plugged in at the foot of the bed. Just a little case history anecdote about that. I had a 40-year-old husband and wife come in to see me as patients in 1990. And in those days, I was doing dark field microscopy on every patient. They came for a well patient check, and both of them said, we're healthy. We're happy with our jobs, happy with our marriage, happy with our children. We eat cleanly. So anyway, when I did dark field microscopy, they both had evidence of cancer in their body. And so I did detailed muscle testing and figured out that he had a colon cancer in his sigmoid colon, and she had a lymphoma in her retroperitoneum. So we did the nuclear spec scan of the woman, and it confirmed the lymphoma. We did a CEA blood test on the man. He didn't want to have a colonoscopy or a sigmoidoscopy. So anyway, I said, well, I don't understand why they both have cancer. So I sent a building biologist, a biologist, out to their house, and he took readings over their bed, and it was 100 times normal. And he unplugged the radio alarm clock on either side of the bed, unplugged the television at the foot of the bed, and the readings, the low frequency electropollution readings, came down to essentially normal. And he called me from their house and he said, this is what I found. I said, well, make sure they keep those things unplugged for the next couple of months. And when they come back in, I'll see how they're doing. And so when they came back in 2 months later, they were both free of cancer without doing anything else. No surgery, no radiation, no chemotherapy, no change in diet, nothing else, just getting rid of the EMF. So it's a huge issue. Okay. If you have elevated readings by the Dr. Gauss, you need to turn off your breakers in your breaker box that go to the bedroom every night at bedtime. Otherwise, you're getting zapped. And if your acousticom is high, then you need to get rid of the Wi-Fi, cordless phones, cell phones, and all that other stuff. But probably if you live in a city, even if you turn off your Wi-Fi, you're still going to be able to pick up the Wi-Fi from several neighbors, which is still going through your body and causing harm to your body. There's a great website called bioinitiative.org. Bioinitiative.org. It has 5,200 peer-reviewed references on one website showing the harm to the human body from electropollution. 5,200. So if somebody in allopathic medicine says, well, EMF's not harmful to the body, that's wrong. Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is really important. Dietrich Klinghardt met a researcher in Switzerland who was doing a very interesting study. He built a Faraday cage on his countertop, and he put a Petri dish full of fungus inside the Faraday cage. A Faraday cage is an electromagnetic shielded cage, basically metallized cloth over this Petri dish. And then he measured the amount of mycotoxin production in the Petri dish to see how much mycotoxin the fungus was producing inside of a EMF shielded environment. And then he took the EMF shielded environment away and measured the mycotoxin production again. And it went up 600 times, 60,000%. Okay. So if you live in a city, you're getting electropollution. If you have mold in your house, you're getting mycotoxin production in your air and you're breathing it. And the mycotoxins, as I said, are cancer causing, immune suppressive, and neurodegenerative. So you got to fix as much of that as you can. Now, if the mold or fungus is in your body, then you're producing those mycotoxins right in your body, in your paranasal sinuses, in your gut. So that's why I believe that people that live in the city, one of the reasons why I believe that people in the city should sleep inside of a metallized cloth canopy. You can buy a metallized cloth canopy online. I looked today for about $600. So it's not a cheap thing, but it's a life-saving thing. So I believe everybody that lives in the city should should sleep inside of a Faraday cage at night. Because if you don't, you never go into parasympathetic state. You can't heal your body when you're in sympathetic state, which the high frequency EMF pollution causes you to stay in a sympathetic state all night long. And you can't correct the direction of spin of your chakras. The energetic vortices of the body should be clockwise spinning. But if you're sleeping in an electropolluted environment, you won't have all of your chakras, all 7 of your chakras spinning clockwise. Some will be spinning counterclockwise. If any of the chakras are spinning counterclockwise, then you won't be able to recharge your organs from the piezoelectric contraction of your muscles in your arms and legs. And so your organs all degenerate faster. And so it's a really important thing. Next slide. Okay, so there's a canopy on the right. Most people that buy that kind say, "Oh, I feel claustrophobic in this. I can't sleep in this thing." The one on the left is a box canopy suspended from the ceiling with 4 to 6 hooks in the ceiling. Or if you have a poster bed like this, you can just hang it on the bed, like my wife does. But anyway, there's the reference, the bioinitiative.org, for the harmful effects of EMF. Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, I already did that that slide well enough, I think.
Good.
And they
Yep.
and they can click at the slide later if they want to.
Okay.
Okay, so toxins build up in our cells and poison the cell membranes, poison the organellar membranes inside of our cells. People develop cancer because the mitochondria in the cells get damaged. The mitochondria are supposed to produce the apoptotic factor that gets out of the mitochondria and goes through the cytoplasm into the nucleus and tells the DNA to stop replicating. And so if you lose your apoptotic signal from the mitochondria, the cell has no control and it continues replicating. And so if you want to get somebody healthy, you got to get their mitochondria healthy. And so there's a lot of ways to do that. You can do what I call an oil change, which is to take some lecithin every day. And the lecithin is phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylethanolamine, phosphatidylserine, and some of the other phosphatidyl groups that go through the cell membrane into the interior of the cell and incorporate themselves into the mitochondrial membrane. And then that phospholipid that incorporates itself into the into the mitochondrial membrane pushes the harmful fats out of the cell membrane that are causing a lot of the impaired function of the mitochondria. And so then all of a sudden your cytochrome P450, your cytochrome oxidase system starts working. You start producing ATP for the cell. You start producing apoptotic factor, and all of a sudden cancer goes away. So Dr. What's his name? Blanking on the doctor's name that figured that out and won a Nobel Prize for it back, I think, 1928. So it's it's sad that we don't learn from history. We have to keep committing the same mistakes.
So Doc, what is that? You said lecithin, right? So what does that look like? Is that how much, or is there a protocol for that?
Yeah. So in my opinion, the best source of lecithin is eggs properly cooked. Never break the yolk until the egg is fully cooked. So that means lightly poached in water or lightly boiled in the shell, so that the yolk is still liquid whenever you finish cooking it before you eat it. The lecithin in there is highly effective in doing that oil change to push the harmful fats out off of the cell membrane and off of the organellar membranes, and in replacing it, replacing those harmful fats. And some people say, well, I have allergy to eggs. Well, you may have allergy to chicken eggs, but you probably don't have allergy to duck eggs and goose eggs and turkey eggs and quail eggs and lots of other eggs, guinea eggs. So at the farmer's market, usually you can find 2 or 3 of those other types of eggs, and just make sure you prepare them the right way. So if you eat a couple of eggs every other day, you get a pretty good oil change every other day. Now, the days in between, if you want to do your oil change every day, you get some organic sunflower seed lecithin and do a tablespoon of that in a smoothie once a day. And so you're doing your oil change every day. Okay, what's next?
You got it. Taking my own notes here. It's good stuff.
Okay, so there's a variety of infections that contribute to cancer. We talked about the mold already, but we have pretty good evidence that I don't know if you've read the book by Alan Cantwell called Cancer Microbe, but he and others before him found microbes in the body that appear to be causative in cancer. And Virginia Livingston Wheeler, Gaston Nassons, and others. So the viruses are well known. Some of the viruses are well known to cause cancer, like Epstein-Barr virus and some of the other viruses. But also the fungi can likely cause cancer, also by not just by producing mycotoxins, but by producing a tumor that looks like a cancer, and the patient gets treated as if they have cancer when all they have is a fungoma. Okay, and so there's recent research that showed when they analyzed 40 or 50 different types of cancer, they found fungi in all of those cancer tumors. It's commonplace. Borrelia has an immune suppressive gene that makes a person more susceptible to cancer, and some of the parasites also have immune suppressive substances. There was a doctor years ago who figured out that Fasciolopsis buski, which is a fluke, a flatworm, produces a cancer-inducing substance called orthophosphotyrosine. And so if you got flukes in your body, you're going to be producing orthophosphotyrosine, which stimulates cancer growth. Next slide. Okay, so again, clean up your skincare products. I'm going to tell a quick case history anecdote. I had a fellow that came to me with multiple myeloma, and his bones looked like Swiss cheese. He had holes in every bone of his body, and he was in advanced stages of multiple myeloma. He came from North Carolina. He brought his suitcase full of nutrients with him. And so when I was doing the muscle testing, I found that the primary cause of the cancer that showed up in his bone marrow point on the muscle testing was petroleum. And I said, have you worked in the oil industry? No. Have you do you change your own oil? No. I'm a white collar worker. I've never been around any of that stuff ever, even when I was a teenager or young person. I said, well, you're getting it somewhere. So I said, let's look at your nutrients that you brought. So he opened up his suitcase, and the smell of Vicks Vapor Rub almost knocked me off my stool. So I dug around in his suitcase and found the jar of Vicks Vapor Rub. I said, when did you use that last? He said, this morning. I said, how often do you use it? He says, daily. I said, how long have you been using it? For 50 years. I said, read the first ingredient on that label, petrolatum. I said, that's petroleum. Okay. I said, stop it. And so he stopped using that. We did a laser detox to get the petroleum out of his body. He did some infrared saunas when he got home, and he went into complete remission from the multiple myeloma without doing much else. Okay, so he was poisoning himself by skincare products. Okay, and so fine clean products. A lot of women say, "Oh, my skin's going to get too dry if I don't put something on it." The Polynesian women put coconut oil on their skin, and their skin is beautiful. And coconut oil has very good antiviral, antifungal properties as well as some antioxidant properties. All right, move on.
Got it. Let's see. Sorry, it's stuck. I'll get it here. Give me 1 second.
Click on the center of the slide with your cursor, and then it'll allow you to move it forward.
There you go. Thanks, Doc.
Okay, so this is concerning. But in 1976, they passed the Toxic Substances Control Act. But most of the chemicals that were already in the common use at that time were grandfathered in and never tested. Okay, and that's how DDT was already in use at that time, and it took another several years to get DDT out of our use in the United States. It's still being used in other countries that produce fruits and vegetables that they ship back to us in the United States in the wintertime. So we're still getting it. And the Environmental Protection Agency did an interesting research up in the Northeast. They found DDT in people's fat samples. They said, well, how's it getting into them? So they analyzed the air of their house, and they had DDT high in the air of their house. And then they said, well, how's it getting in the air of the house? And so they found it in the carpet. And they said, well, how's it getting in the carpet? And they found it on the soles of the shoes. Well, how's it getting on the shoes? Then they found it out in the yard. So when people walk across the yard with their shoes, the grass has DDT in it because DDT was used on the yard 50 years ago. Half-life of DDT in the soil is 50 years. And so they were walking across the grass, bringing DDT into their house, scraping it across the carpet, and then the vacuum cleaner was aerosolizing it, putting it into the air, and the lungs were filtering it out of the air. Okay, but anyway, few substances have been tested for their toxicity by the EPA, and so what happens typically is that a toxic substance will be cause enough deaths in people, and the attorneys get on, create a class action suit to represent the people, and then once that class action suit happens, then the company that makes that product decides to take it off the shelf, or the government makes them take it off the shelf. But by that time, they created almost identical product that they replace the first toxic product with, and it's also just as toxic, but it's never been tested. So then the humans in the population become the test for that. Yeah, great plan. But anyway, there's all kinds of things that you can use to get rid of pests besides pesticides. Like down there it talks about boric acid, diatomaceous earth, fatty acid soaps, horticulture oils. If you have an ant problem in your house, you can sprinkle black pepper around the perimeter of the room that the ants are coming into, and they'll stop coming. So no toxicity from that.
So that pesticide action network, that's a good one, Doc.
Yeah. That's a pretty good one. And fleas and other insects can be trapped on flypaper that you pin to your carpet upside down, and you put a little plate right in the center of the, like a saucer, right in the center of the flypaper, and then you put a piece of dry ice, and you put a coin to keep the dry ice, to keep the little bowl that's over the dry ice tilted up just a little bit, so just a little bit of the dry ice carbon dioxide gas will come out. The carbon dioxide attracts the fleas. They jump, stick on the flypaper. Pretty soon you've cleared your house of fleas without any pesticides. There's all kinds of clever ways to get rid of pests in your house. Don't use pesticides in your house. Next. Okay, now this is an interesting study on children with attention deficit. 1,139 children were exposed to high levels of organophosphate pesticides, and they found that in their urine, and they figured out that was the primary cause of the attention deficit in those children. And so there's all kinds of other toxins that haven't even been evaluated. Mercury is a common contributor to autism and attention deficit disorder. And mercury, the most common source of mercury in people is the mercury amalgams that dentists still put in people's teeth. Now, I had a 6-year-old child in my office who had attention deficit disorder. She had no mercury fillings in her teeth. And so mom was there. So I said, open your mouth. I looked at mom's mouth. She had no mercury fillings. The mother's mother was also in the office with them. And I asked the grandmother to open her mouth. And she had a mouth full of mercury amalgams and had those all of her life. And she shared that mercury transplacentally with her daughter, and probably through breast milk to her daughter, who then transferred it to her daughter. Okay. So what we call transgenerational mercury transfer. Okay, that's enough on that one. Okay, clean up your skincare products. There's so many skincare products that are perfectly safe. There's as a matter of fact, there's makeup that are made from minerals from the soil that actually look really good on women, and most women don't even know that exists. The coloring on most lipsticks is from heavy metals. Okay, and so how many times does a woman that puts lipstick on lick her lips in the day while she's got the lipstick on? So she's loading her body up with heavy metals all day long from licking her lipstick. But there are lipsticks that are made from non-toxic substances. Go ahead. We're running out of time here.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is a great list to know about, the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. Okay, so you can see on the left there, the ones that are really high in pesticides. A lot of people don't have enough money to buy everything that they eat organically. So here's what I ask people to do. If you're going to consume an animal-derived product, try to make it organic, because organic beef has 5 times the amount of pesticide as non-organic vegetables. 5 times, okay? Non-organic butter has 20 times as much pesticide as non-organic vegetables. Okay, so you can get organic butter from Denmark or Finland in my little grocery store out in the middle of nowhere, and it's completely free of pesticides energetically, and it's made from A1 milk. So it's not even harmful to the health. Most of the butter in the United States is made from A2 milk, or sorry, most of the butter in the United States is made from A1 milk, which is from Holstein cows. The one from Denmark and Finland is made from A2 milk, which is Jerseys and Guernseys. And so, if you're going to drink milk or consume dairy products, it's much better to do A2 milk products. And then, the ones on the right, you probably can eat without making sure that they're organic fairly safely. Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, water. Oh my goodness, water. where do you start there? There's 70,000 man-made chemicals in tap water, in addition to the pharmaceuticals. In 2008, the Environmental Protection Agency did a study of the water supply from the 40 largest cities in the United States, and analyzing those waters for pharmaceutical drugs. And they found chemical levels of pharmaceutical drugs in all 40 of them. Okay, so that included hormones, antibiotics, chemotherapy drugs. So you say, well, how's all that getting into the water? Well, it's what we call water reclamation. Most big cities take the water that comes through the sewage, they into the sewage plant. They put it through really coarse filters to get out, the big chunks and the toilet paper, and then they add some chlorine to it, and then they put that back into the water use supply. Okay, makes you want to get a big glass of tap water from the city, doesn't it? That's why I live out in the countryside on well water. Okay, so 62 million Americans are exposed to drinking water that did not meet governmental health guidelines in 2004, 2014. So it's a massive problem. At least get a Berkey gravity water filter. When the electricity goes out, which is pretty likely sometime in the next year or two, you're going to wish that you had a Berkey filter instead of one that operates off of power. And so you can actually get a pitcher and go dip it into the swimming pool in your backyard and pour it through the Berkey, and it's clean enough to drink. Or the stream or the pond in the backyard. Okay. Air pollution is a huge problem. If you're going to do some remodeling of your house, make sure that you use no VOC paint or adhesives if you can. If you can't find no VOC, at least use low VOC. The volatile organocarbons are things like benzene, xylene, toluene, hexane, pentane, and so on that get into the air, and your lungs become the filter that gets that out of the air after you do your remodel. So that's a really bad idea. If you're going to buy furniture, don't buy particle board furniture because it outgasses formaldehyde for months, sometimes years. So get solid wood furniture. If you're going to buy a couch, a leather couch is what I would suggest, even though it's going to cost you a little bit more, because all the non-leather couches have brominated flame retardants on them, which are extremely toxic to the human body and suppress the thyroid and suppress the receptors on the cells that should bind steroidal hormones. Okay, that's enough on that. Yeah, I thought more on flame retardants. So just lots of pajamas have flame retardants on it. So you have to, and also bed sheets and mattresses and so on. So you gotta check everything. And sometimes you actually have to have a prescription from a medical doctor or an osteopathic doctor that gives you permission to buy, in some states, a mattress or sheets or whatever that are not flame retardant. It's so commonplace. But ewg.org is a really good website to learn more about the environmental pollution. Next slide. Aluminum. We're all getting doused with aluminum every day. Every time you go outside, if there's chemtrails in the air, you're getting doused with aluminum and barium. And it should be criminal. I don't know how long it'll take the American public to wake up and stop doing something about that, but it's destroying forest. It's one of the reasons why we've had so many forest fires out in California, because when you spray that aluminum on the trees in the forest, it makes them easily combustible. So that's a really bad idea. But aluminum is neurodegenerative, causes Alzheimer's, dementia, among other things, and it's in aluminum antiperspirants. It's in aluminum pots that you cook on the stove. So you need to try to remove the input of aluminum, and then also do things to pull the aluminum out. There's a company called Herbalix, Herbalix, that produces a product called detox deodorant, and it looks like a deodorant container. And if you put that on your axilla instead of your aluminum containing antiperspirant, it'll pull the aluminum out of your body instead of putting more aluminum into your body. If you put it on the soles of your feet, it'll pull out the aluminum that has settled there in the most dependent part of your anatomy, because from the aluminum that you've gotten from cookware and from aluminum foil on foods, and aluminum in the air from the chemtrails. Okay, but make sure that you store things in glass, or glass or ceramic or Pyrex, because plastics are immune or hormone disruptors and cancer causing. So bisphenol A and phthalates. Phthalates are filling up our oceans now from all the plastics that are dumped into the ocean. Yeah. Okay. Open your windows whenever it's feasible. Look outside and see if the air is filled with chemtrails. If it is, maybe you want to wait till a different time of the day to do that. But the air inside most buildings is 5 to 10 times more toxic than the air outside, no matter how toxic the air outside is. Okay, so if you can get the times of the year when it's feasible, put a big box fan in one of the windows in your house blowing outward, and open some doors and windows on the other side of the house and let air come through the house and pull as many of the toxins out into the air as possible. Take your shoes off at the door and put on your house shoes that you wear only in the house, because that'll stop putting so much toxins into the flooring. And make sure that you use a HEPA vacuum cleaner that pulls all those fine particulate things out of the carpet, and not just the gross stuff. Okay. I'll go and move down. He was supposed to pull those out.
No worries.
Yeah, keep moving.
Yep.
We keep moving.
Clean diet, detox.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Back up one slide there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is important. 2 ounces of water, pure water, every 15 minutes while awake will continually push toxins out of your body through your liver, gallbladder, bile ducts, and through your bowel, and through your kidneys and urinary bladder. And if you don't, the purpose of water is to carry nutrients into our cells and pull toxins out of our cells. And if you do a big glass of water in the morning and another big glass of water at the end of the day, you might get the same number of ounces per day, but you won't get the same amount of hydration per day. So 2 ounces every 15 minutes. And first day, you just need to set a timer to go off to get that rhythm down of every 15 minutes, and just keep the water in a glass container close to you. Don't put it in a plastic container. You don't need any more phthalates or bisphenol A in your body. And then 57% of the population are deficient in magnesium, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But we know that it's at least 87% because they always underestimate nutritional deficiencies by that amount. Magnesium is necessary for half of the enzymes in the body that produce energy for the body. So without enough magnesium, you're not going to produce energy, and then you're going to have, anaerobic metabolism, more so than if you had sufficient magnesium to drive those metabolic processes in the mitochondria. Yeah, there's lots of other stuff there, but we can go
Zinc, D, C, Lugos. Okay, so you guys take a good pick of that. Purify, restore. And then here's it looks like some of the products. Doc, do you have any? I know those supplements. Do you have any that you like as far as a protocol or a program like Store Report?
I when I was in full-time practice, I used products from 150 different nutraceutical companies. So I don't know any one company that produces everything that I feel is necessary for human health. And sometimes the very best product in a particular category is the only product that company makes.
Yeah, right. Sure.
So yeah, so sometimes it's a challenge, but yeah.
Yeah, some of these, just being somewhat familiar, some of these, what they do, ladies and gentlemen, is they work on the nutrition or nutrients that are needed for phase one detox. And briefly, that's taking your fat soluble toxins and reducing them. So you're pulling some molecules off of them, if you will, and that creates a different structure. That then phase two, to try to keep it as simple, and that's called a redux. Then phase two will basically conjugate or add things to them to make them water soluble. Right? Is that a fair, just quick explanation, Doc?
It close. It was
Yeah.
close.
Doctor.
The primary enzymes in the phase one or cytochrome
P450.
P450, and
Yep.
those are oxidizing enzymes. So typically you convert fat soluble substances into a water soluble substance that's actually oxidized. And sometimes those oxidized substances are more toxic than the fatty substance that was
Came
there
in.
before you did the detoxification.
Right.
But if you have good levels of the glutathione and other molecules that are needed in the phase two, then you rapidly convert those toxic oxidized substances into substances that the body can clear out.
Yeah. So if you're trying to do a detox hypothetically, right? And that
Yeah,
phase one, you're basically making these new byproducts that need to
right,
get cleared, right?
right.
And phase two is backed up, then you're going to create a lot of inflammation, a lot of a lot of free radicals, and you're going to potentially damage tissue and DNA and RNA and so forth, correct?
Yeah. I'll give you a quick anecdote
Yeah.
to help people understand the importance of that whole process working well. Uh, I had a patient who was a dentist, and he did a lot of work with acrylics in his dentistry. And one day he didn't tell me what he was going to do, but he took a big dose of milk thistle. Now, milk thistle increases the phase one detoxification process, the cytochrome P450 oxidation,
Mhm.
and soon after he did that, he started peeing pink urine,
Hmm.
and not too long after that, he started feeling dizzy. And so his wife took him to the hospital emergency room, and his hemoglobin was already down to 6. Okay, it should be 15.
Mhm.
So he was much less than half what he should be on his oxygen carrying capacity, and he had hemolysis going on. He was hemolyzing his red blood cells,
Yeah.
and that occurred because he oxidized those fat soluble acrylates into an oxidized substance and didn't have enough glutathione on board to do the
Clear.
phase two detoxification.
Yep.
So he started hemolyzing, and he almost died.
Wow.
So if you're going to take milk thistle, don't do it whimsically. Always make sure you take plenty of NAC or liposomal glutathione or the combination of the above before you take the milk thistle.
Yeah.
Milk,
And that,
milk, milk thistle increases the cytochrome P450 oxidase system sevenfold.
wow.
So not just a little bit.
And then so with that, if he's backed up on the phase two, all those things are building up in his system and creating major problems, right? So your phase
Yeah,
two, some of the amino acids, your glutathiones, some of your sulfur, the MSMs, things like that are also good too, right?
yeah,
Yeah, to take.
yeah. Something you just said is important. Back when I first started doing laser detox, I figured out that patients weren't detoxing uh, the metals very well, uh, and I was trying to figure out why that was. And what I figured out is that most of them had a genetic defect in their sulfation pathway
Right.
enzymes, and so they weren't producing glutathione like they should. And when I investigated that further, what I found is that they had at some point taken a sulfur containing drugs, like almost all of the diuretics are
Mhm.
sulfur containing. That's Lasix and Bumex and all those,
Some of the
and
antibiotics.
and then there's sulfur containing antibiotics.
Mhm.
Septrum and Bactrim and all those, and then there's sulfur containing diabetic drugs. A large number of the diabetic drugs are sulfur containing. So one of those sulfur drugs actually got into the cell and bound to the sulfation path enzymes that are already compromised and compromised them even further, so the body wasn't able to produce glutathione. And so they were getting major trouble trying to eliminate metals from the body.
Now, did the epigenetics, is that what created it? The
Well, yeah,
mutation that turned on,
yeah,
maybe?
well, yeah, sometimes it's epigenetics, and some cases it's actually purely genetics. So if you do a test through one of the genetic testing labs, you'll find, sometimes homozygous genetic SNPs, they call it, single nucleotide polymorphisms, in some of the sulfation pathway enzymes. The critical ones are sulfide oxidase and cystathionine beta synthase, but others can be affected.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, what I was getting at with some of these that you see here, they contain phase 1 support, and then they also contain phase 2 support. So, we don't have any, I don't have any, I think, bias to any of them. However, I know that that's what they contain. They'll contain the support that's needed nutritionally for phase 1 and phase 2 to help both of those work a little bit better. So there's some examples there that you could look into for sure.
Yeah. I think one of the most important substances to take for phase 2 is N-acetylcysteine. If you give the patient cysteine, then in the stomach, if there's enough hydrochloric acid in the stomach, the two cysteine molecules join together to form cysteine, and they become completely ineffective. So that cysteine molecule just has to finally make it to the kidneys and out into the toilet, and it never gets converted into glutathione. But if you have acetyl group attached to the cysteine, the acetyl group after it gets absorbed, the acetyl group gets cleaved off and used for energy, and the cysteine then is available to make glutathione, which is cysteine, glutamic acid, and glycine together.
And absolutely necessary for phase 2 detox, right?
Absolutely essential. Yeah.
Okay, some other things too there, just so you could see, as far as the clays and things like that, just some of the things that I know the doctors here use, and SOD and detox baths and anything, some of the others, gang, that are just products there, that you could.
I'd like to say a little bit more about the detox. I think one of the most useful tools to detox is infrared sauna, and you don't have to have a $3,000 wooden sauna that you walk into. As a matter of fact, some patients find those stifling and have a hard time actually getting into one of those. So what I usually use is actually just a little portable sit-down sauna. Some of them have higher EMF than others, so you can actually do some searching on the internet to figure out which ones are lower EMF. But in that case, the sauna comes up to here and your head sticks out, so you don't feel smothered from the heat that's being generated down here where your body is. And so, you'll, even if you don't sweat, the infrared light penetrating about 3 inches into your body will mobilize toxins out of your cells. Those toxins will get into the lymph vessels and carry to the central circulation, or they'll get into the venous system and carried to the central circulation, and then they get pumped by the heart through the liver into the gallbladder, into the bowel, into the toilet, or through the kidneys, urinary bladder, and toilet. And so infrared sauna can be life saving. When they had the 9/11 event in New York City, the police, the firefighters and the other rescuers that did not do saunas all developed cancer and all died, or severe lung disease and all died. Those that started doing sauna immediately after the 9/11, most of them are still alive. Okay, so big difference.
Hey Doc, are the mats good? Are there infrared sauna mats? Do you have any?
Yeah. So some people have a hard time sitting because maybe they're paralyzed and they can't sit very easily. So for those folks, I have them buy the infrared mats that are about 6 feet long, and then they roll the mat out on a bed. They lay 2 layers of cotton terry cloth towel on top of the mat. They they strip naked, lay down on the towels, cover up with another towel, cover up with a regular blanket, and then cover up with a emergency blanket. It's a mylar sheet like you would find in a little packet about that big in the sporting goods store. If you're going to go out in the wilderness in the middle of the winter, you stick that in your pocket. So if you get trapped out in the blizzard, you open the thing up and it's 3 feet wide and 7 feet long, and you get inside that, and it reflects the infrared light from your body back into your body so that you don't freeze to death. But it does the same thing on the bed top sauna, I call it. You know, it's just reflecting the infrared light from the mat and from your body back into your body, and so you get a pretty toasty effect inside that mat. You know, from there down. Now, if you want to detoxify your brain, you buy one of the little infrared things that are usually used on the neck, and instead of putting it around the neck, you put it from your eyebrows up to the back of your head and turn it on also. And so you're sending infrared light down into the brain, which then releases the heavy metals and the pesticides and herbicides and other stuff from your brain, and then that comes out through the lymphatic system from the brain into the lymphatic system of the brain.
Good tools, ladies and gentlemen, good tools. Okay, so what we'll do, gang, because we're so a little bit over time, we'll get the questions like we always do, and then we'll make sure we answer them, and we'll set out those answers for you. I want to just take a quick note to make sure if you had an inquiry, if you're dealing with active cancer or looking for prevention of reoccurrence, the 949 number that you see, 867-6374. And the cancercenterforhealing.com is the website. The Perfectly Healthy store, you see it there, 949-997-0821. And then if you're just wellness and looking for strategies to clean up everything, detox, things like that, the 949-867-6419 and the cfnmedicine.com website is something that you could visit as well. But Dr. Cowden, I want to thank you for being on with us. Information, I learn a lot every time you're on. I try to take my notes here, but at least I have the PowerPoint that I can go back and we'll replay. We always send, if you're new to the cancer conversation, we always send the replay so you can watch it again. So you'll have these slides again. You can take your pictures, you can take your notes, things like that. So you'll have that opportunity as well, everybody. But again, Dr. Cowden, thank you for being here. We appreciate your time. I know everybody out there that's listening appreciates the wealth of knowledge that you have. And, you know, we just want to say thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good couple weeks. We'll see you in a couple. If you have any questions or concerns or what have you, reach out. We're always here to help. You know, we're just trying to make life as easy as we can, inform you, educate you as best we can, so you have more power and more control over you know, these chronic diseases like cancer. So, okay, everybody, have a great couple weeks, and much love to you all. Good. Thanks again, Doc.